Hello everyone.
Hello.
My name is Dr. Conrad Richards, and today we're going to talk about talent in real estate brokerage. In real estate brokerage, you will find that an organization is made up of people, and their sole purpose is to serve the general public in their housing needs. Talented people are considered to be the most valued resource. In fact, McKinsey Management Company made it clear that an organization without talented people just cannot win. An organization needs talented people. So today we're going to talk about a case about a gentleman named Jack who decided to open his own brokerage. He's been in the business for a number of years as a salesperson and as an associate broker, but never as a business owner. And now he's about to hire his own team. He thought that maybe going to a real estate school locally would be the right avenue to take. He had no idea of talent management strategy and how important it is when it comes to sustaining an engaged workforce. So the purpose of this session is to be able to come up with principles that he can use so that he will not have a problem when it comes to his staffing. He went down to the local school and he picked up some eligible people. People who took the real estate course, passed the exam. These individuals are eligible. And he thought he's on his way, and he hired a number of people. And he was very, very happy. And in fact, those, just looking at their faces, what do you see?
Happy.
They're very happy, George. They're very happy, yes, indeed. I finally am able to find a career that I can certainly do well. And in fact, in the real estate classes, they learn everything about licensing and about the rules, but not necessarily about whether they are fitted for this career or not. And you'll find that the first 30 days of Jack's business was a honeymoon period. What do I mean by the honeymoon period?
It's all good.
It's all good.
Everybody's happy.
Okay, it's all good then, yes. It's all good. And it was. It was until the 60-90-day period came along and it became apparent. People began to drop out. People began to lose interest. People began to realize the reality of this industry. So in this case, we've got a confused broker, and some of you may probably understand what's going on with my friend Jack. What do you think he did wrong? What exactly do you think he did wrong? Did he do anything right? What do you think?
We didn't qualify them to see what they actually knew, I suppose, would be one thing. They didn't know exactly, they had a license, but did they have any background in any other sales or anything like that? To qualify them in some other way other than they've got a license. It sounds like was what Jack initially did. You got a license, so come on and work with me, right?
Absolutely. So it sounds to me that he thought, well, maybe just hiring someone out of the licensing course is good enough.
Right.
Right? That's what George is saying. Anyone else would like to comment on that? Beth?
Were there any mentoring programs going on in the office?
You mean in his office or at the school?
In the new office that they were doing it in?
Well, he was, he introduced him to a training program, but even with the training program, which was really about the systems and operations, it probably wasn't enough. Okay, Dr. Sam?
Thinking maybe adequate and reasonable supervision, once he got them there, could he provide staff specific training on the company policy and procedures of how to operate in the company?
Good, good, absolutely. Dr. Sam, that's absolutely correct. Supervision, in fact, it's actually integrated into the licensing requirements. If you are a broker, you must supervise the people that you employ. Superintendents, Gary.
Why are people getting into the business? Making bucks. Bottom line is, what plan did he help lay them out? Did he give an objective, show them what's necessary to start making money in real estate?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. The broker needs to understand those that he's hiring so that he can be a better coach, a better mentor, and to help that person to assimilate into this business. Someone else had their hand up. Liz.
I was going to say something similar to Gary, that everyone that gets a real estate license, you have to know the laws to pass the exam, but you don't know how to go out and get a client, what to do with the client, how to treat the client, how to close the deal. Is he providing that kind of training and how to actually do the work?
Very good, very good. Training. And one more. Susie.
Coaching.
Coaching. Give me a little bit more about that.
Well, coaching has a different terminology in today's time. I mean, you go back to the old school days of what a broker does. They were your mentor. They were your trainer. They were your advisor.
Mm-hmm.
And then over the years, because of the way brokerage companies have changed in their dynamics, of course, then these coaches came in, motivational coaches trying to help them, but giving them strategies to be able to run their own business.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Susie. Coaching, we're going to talk about that as we go through the program. But you're going to find, yes, I agree, coaching is absolutely necessary in providing that career path, helping the person to make better decisions, and helping them to understand what are the alternatives. Absolutely. One more, George, go ahead.
Goals. Did you set up any goals? I mean, they say they want to come in and make a lot of money. Well, how much is a lot? And how are you going to then, it's a sales thing, you want to make 100 grand. Well, that means you better be closing so much a month, and how are you going to do that? Did you help them set up any goals and then how to obtain those goals, a path for that?
Wonderful, wonderful. Goal setting, yes? George says goal setting. So, in this session, we're going to explore principles that could help Jack. And the first particular principle that Jack needs to be aware of is understanding what talent really is. Many of us, as it was said earlier, that some people believe that talent is really for the musician or a tap dancer or someone who's very creative. But talent could be related to our industry as well. Some people believe that talent is by nature or by nurture. In fact, I'd like to stop here for a minute. What do you think? Where does talent come from? Is it nurture? Or is it nature? And let me define what those two items are before you respond. Nature is really based on how a person's born and how they're able to receive certain attributes from their parents and through their family lineage. Or someone who's able to they're born but they have this inclination to be able to do something really well, comfortably. Where others, they can be nurtured, trained through their peers, and they can do extremely well. So, let's go back to that. Nurture versus nature versus nurture. Go ahead, Travis.
I think it would be fair to say it's a blend of both. I think that there are certain people who are obviously gifted with certain talents almost from the get-go. The ability to connect with people in a way that's going to make them sort of the natural salesperson. But I also think that through proper sort of training and nurturing, then those same skills can be taught and or accentuated. So I think it's a blend of both. I don't think it has to be one or the other.
beautifully said. Travis is making it clear that it doesn't necessarily have to be a born attribute. It can also be something that's developed. That's a good thing. Why? Why is it a good thing? It's because you may not have that born natural abilities, but there's a chance to learn something new. There's a chance to refrain yourself and to be able to operate in a new capacity. Now, as we move along in this same discussion, just think back to someone that you know who's highly successful in this business. Someone that you know that is incredible. And let's go back to see if we can assess the characteristics. The characteristics that drives this individual. So, see if you can think about it. What kind of characteristics that come to your mind when you think about that person?
Commitment, consistency.
Gary says commitment and consistency. Susie, would you agree with what Gary just said?
I do agree with Gary, and then my friends that are extremely successful, then they have systems in place that they don't deviate from, which is interesting because systems can be with systems. I mean, I was just at a presentation the other day where they've incorporated this system into this system, and we're all doing systems there. But they don't deviate, they stay true to the course.
So, is this something that Jack should be considering as well when he's hiring his team?
I don't know if Jack has a system in his head.
Yes. Deb, you had a question?
I was going to say, generally they're very motivated, which would be along the line of the commitment. There's something that's driving them to be successful.
So motivation is important as well.
Yes.
And we're going to explore that more because there's different kinds of motivations. You know, just look at yourselves. Beth is about to say something.
And people who are successful also have daily goals set up, not just yearly, but daily. They break it down to the day. I know in business I'm in, I know people who set hourly goals, that they have to produce so much per hour even. So it keeps them motivated and doing things to keep producing, whether they're selling that hour, but doing tasks to keep them on that goal, to get to that projected goal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What you're doing in order to get there.
To that goal.
So in this session, we're going to cover 4 important elements. The very first, as we just given a little bit of an intro, is the characteristics of talent. The next will be, how do we acquire talent? How do we attract talent? And the next would be, how do we engage in the selection of talent? But it's not just the selection. Something else is needed. Once we have talented people, we need to have a retention strategy in place. So those are the 4 elements that we're going to explore today. So talent characteristics, we've explored that a little bit in the first question that we went over. And I'd like to just say that talent characteristics is very, very important for someone coming into this business to actually have an understanding of who they are, where their strengths and where their weaknesses are. Now, as we move along into talent characteristics, one of the important things of talent, we can target attitude. Now, when you talk about attitude, what's your view on attitude? When you think back to that successful salesperson or professional that you were thinking about earlier, what kind of attitude do they have?
Positive. Very positive attitude, generally speaking.
Jules says positive attitude.
Optimistic.
Optimistic,
Yeah.
Absolutely. And can you give me an example when you say optimistic? Because some people may not know what optimistic really means.
Well,
Optimism.
Well, it's, you know, when things go wrong, it's 10% of what happens and 90% of how you respond. And their response is gonna be that this is gonna get better. No matter what it is today, if it's good, it may get worse, but if it's bad, it's gonna get better. That it's gonna end up being better than where it is today, would be one way to express optimism, I guess.
Good, good. And I want to just add and just affirm you, George, because that is so important in this business. Because things will, in this business, we have ups and downs. Would you agree? You do well this month, and next month, yeah, okay. But it's that optimism that takes you to the next month. Okay, you think that could have been something that could have been expressed by Jack, especially during those months, the first and second month. Attitude. The very first time that I came into understanding what positive attitude was when I read the book by Napoleon Hill. How many of you have read the book, Napoleon Hill? Napoleon Hill, for me, when I first came to this country, was a life changer. As a confused lad coming from England, didn't know where I was going or what I wanted to do, but reading that book made a difference for me.
Excuse me, what was the name of the book?
Hmm?
What was the name of the book?
The book is called Think and Grow Rich, and it was written in 1937. Thank you so much, George, for just validating that. How many of you read, just put hands up, how many of you read the book? So you know exactly where I'm going with this.
Yeah. I want to make sure I had the right book. I just said, I didn't know from this one he wrote, I didn't
Think and Grow Rich. Some people believe that you can teach someone how to do something, but it's very difficult to teach them to have a positive attitude. And this is why it's so important to qualify and understand the kind of person that Jack is hiring, what kind of attitude this person has. Someone who has a bad attitude can affect the entire sales floor. Communication, which you'll find, ties in to our attitude. Why? Because attitude is about your mood and the way in which you perceive your environment and your projection. But communication is how you convey that. So in other words, an individual could be, they may have a good attitude, but they can also communicate that to others. Can you think for a moment how communication, effective communication, is necessary for a new employee? Go ahead, Dr. Sam.
I was listening at the presentation yesterday, and the gentleman mentioned about having a vision. And very frequently he communicated that vision to his staff. So I think communicating your vision that you have for the business and the vision for that individual is important. Constantly keeping that before them is a good way to communicate with them to help them to be successful and make companies successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone else? When it comes to communication skills.
It needs to be a two-way street. You can't just be the only one putting it out there. It has to be received and then responded to so that we actually are communicating, not just sending messages. So that open communication is important.
So I just want to validate you, Deb, you're so right about that. It's a two-way street. You know, the individual could be sitting down with a client. It could be that we're on the phone. Communication, the way in which they are engaging together could have an impact on how it's been received. So important. Go right ahead, Janet.
As a broker, it's been really important for me to communicate my expectations because otherwise I'm disappointed a lot. And if they know the expectations, you will go to this training by this date, you will do, you will do these steps, I find that when I communicate the expectations more effectively, I'm able to help them more on where they need to go.
Absolutely. One of the things I find, just to add to what you said, Jan, is that it's not just the employed, it's also the leader. And there is a need for good communication skills, good communication dialogue between everyone within the environment. However, what you'll find with communication, when it comes to communication and how you communicate with others, it's also about your personality. You see, some of us, we have certain tendencies that we're comfortable with. The things that we do every day. And they usually say the things that we do every day are the things that we are proficient because we do it every day. It's habit. So personality, someone's personality could be outgoing. They just are naturally the kind of person that like to go out and meet people. Meanwhile, some people may feel like, you know what, I don't want to, I feel comfortable being by myself. I feel comfortable being by the computer. I feel comfortable in talking to a client over the phone or through Zoom. I don't want to shake hands. I don't want to interact with them. I want to do things remotely. Some people are very driven, and to the point where they're neurotic. You know what I mean. And sometimes it makes other people uncomfortable. Especially if you're talking and they're speaking very quickly, they're not even listening to you, right? Some people may have the tendency to be very creative and solution-oriented, while others, they need to have a structured environment. They need to know what's next. You're shaking your head, Susie. What's that mean?
No, I agree with you.
Okay. So you find that personality is also important. But I'd like to just stop here for a moment.
I have a question for you.
Okay, Kara.
So, perhaps when you're interviewing me, I can be who I think you want me to be. So how do you tell what my personality truly is?
Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But one of the things that you find is that in the first meeting, the broker, in this case, Jack, can do an intuitive assessment of the individual. And later on, by collecting information and possibly writing a personality test, can help to have a better understanding. But we're going to talk about this a little bit later because many of those questions come up in the interview through behavioral questioning. So it's not just the personality. Personality is important. And when you think about our top producers and the kind of personality, I'm thinking of someone who's an extrovert. Yes? Someone who's creative. Someone who is someone who's willing to go out there and meet the world. But it's also to do with how driven this person is and what's driving this person. And here we're going to talk about motivation. How many of us really know what motivates us the most? Because it could be a number of things that motivates us. But what's the most important thing? Susie, go right ahead.
My why.
Hmm?
My why.
Your why.
Why?
Why?
Your big why.
Oh, your why. Your why. So, in other words, the reason. I agree. The why helps us to understand or gives us clues in what's driving this person. Motivation is made up of two important factors: extrinsic and intrinsic, and I'll explain. Extrinsic has to do with people who are motivated through external things. Money, things of tangible value, things that really can bring about immediate gratification. But if someone is driven purely by extrinsic factors, what is the downside to this? Go ahead, Dr. Sam.
If I can't get my needs met or my desires, then I lose my motivation. I don't want to do it anymore.
Say that again, please.
If I can't get my needs satisfied or the money I need to do what I need to do from these extrinsic things, then I lose my motivation. I don't want to do it anymore.
Absolutely. And I just want to validate what Dr. Sam just said a little while ago. If the external environment changes, it changes my motivation. In real estate, if the money supply or if my ability to close deals changes, it affects my motivation. So that's exactly what happened to probably some of those newly employed by Jack. Because in this business, we're dealing with delayed income. Some people want to have a paycheck right away.
Instant gratification.
And instant gratification by birth. I totally agree on that. Not realizing that in this business, being self-employed, you need to have a reserve to fund your business. One of the important things about successful people, they're not driven by just extrinsic factors, they're driven by intrinsic factors. The things that make them whole, the things that drive purpose and fulfillment, the things that make sense. And it doesn't matter whether the world is changing, it doesn't matter if the market has shifted, I'm still in this business because I love it. I love what it does to me. I love how it helps others. So,
Can I ask a question? I'm making sure I'm following. So what, in your life, if you don't mind sharing, what would be the intrinsic factors that causes you to get up every day? You personally.
an example would be, I love to teach, I love to help people, and sometimes I'm tired. I'll be honest, and some of you understand what I mean. If you are educated or you're doing something, sometimes you're tired. Sometimes you may get upset when you meet someone or something happens and you feel unappreciated. Sometimes when you feel that I'm not getting the return that I expect, but from an intrinsic standpoint, I'm going to do it anyway because I love it. My purpose, the driver for this, is beyond anyone else. And these things can be clarified by Jack, just by having initial questioning. Why do you want to get into this business? What is it that you expect out of this business? Where do you see yourself in 12 months from now? Motivation, motivation, motivation. But it's not just motivation that we need to be looking at as well. We need to also assess the person's ability to handle challenges and to get up. How many of you have been hit on the canvas floor and wondering, what am I going to do? I'm looking at the ceiling. Should I stay laying down? The referee's counting, or should I get up? In fact, I'm going to stop right here for a moment. Just think for a moment of your worst moments in your career.
I don't like to do that.
George.
I'm a positive person.
That doesn't seem very helpful, but.
Now think, hold on one moment, Kara. And while you're thinking, this is an exercise, and while you're thinking, think what allowed you to get back up.
Person next to me pulling me up.
Extrinsic, yeah.
Yeah.
Susie, go right ahead.
Faith.
Hmm?
Faith.
Faith.
But what is faith? Because some of you may not know
I
what
don't
faith
know,
is.
when
Really.
you're at the bottom of the gap, there's only one way to look up.
Hmm.
And that's looking up, and, you know, I'm an optimist, the sun's gonna come out tomorrow.
Good, good. And I totally agree. Anyone else would like to agree with Susie on that? Cara, go right ahead, Cara.
Well, you know, today I had to do something that was uncomfortable for me. You did it quite well. And there was a time when I taught a class, and it didn't go very well for me. In fact, it was terrible. And I knew it was going to be terrible going in, because of the things that were expected of me that I really wasn't able to do. But I did it anyway, because I love the school, and I love teaching. And it was a very difficult time for me. So I will say that when I came in today, today was not that day. And if I got through that day, I knew I could get through this day.
So, Cara, would you agree then in your statement that our challenges, the difficulties actually becomes our testing ground for us? Okay, we look back at our previous successes and we can say, you know what, we can do it. We did it before, we can do it again. Right? So, in this business, in this entrepreneurial environment, we want to assess if this person has an entrepreneurial mindset. Go ahead, Beth.
Or I can say it a different way, if we look at something that we've done in the past that we didn't do so well, a failure or something close to a failure, and that we made it through that failure and our heads didn't fall off, that if we got through that, the next time we know that it's going to be better, and that if we look at it in a positive way, like Susie said, just having the faith, it's going to get better.
Absolutely. It's about the way in which you perceive your environment and the decisions that we make. Would you agree with what Beth just said?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right, so moving along from an entrepreneurial mindset, and before we do, there's one more point I'd like to just make about an entrepreneurial mind, is that the individual can succeed or have the ability to succeed in different situations. They're able to succeed regardless. If it takes a day, if it takes a year, if it takes forever, eventually in their mind, I'm going to succeed. And we need people in the brokerage firm that have this mindset. We're going to be great. We're not there yet, but we will. Okay, so now we've talked a little bit about talent, the characteristics that's driving talent. But how should Jack acquire or attract talent? Any of you have any ideas? Go ahead, Gary.
Nothing like showing results of somebody that started from scratch, and I developed them into a multi-million-dollar salesperson. That is exactly demonstrate how you develop somebody else.
Absolutely, development. And is it possible that the broker gets a good feeling out of this, or is it really a burden to the broker? How should the broker view this?
Very positive. It shows the fact it's successful and pass that along to other people.
Absolutely, my success is your success. Absolutely. Anyone else would like to just add to that? How should Jack position his brokerage to attract talent? Go ahead, Travis.
I think that one of the things he could do during his interviewing process is to, rather than manage top-down, manage bottom-up, in the sense of, if you're looking for an entrepreneurial mindset, they should have expectations of you on the way in the door. It's not just your expectations of them, they should also have expectations of you. So rather than just laying out your expectations for them as a manager, say, well, what are your expectations of us? What is it that you expect us to deliver for you so that you can build your business? Because that will very quickly sort out those who have already focused on building a business versus those that have not.
Absolutely, Travis. It's a conversation that needs to be in place at the very beginning. So when we talk about talent acquisition, it is actually a strategic approach. Should be. And Jack didn't take that position earlier. He just thought, well, I'll just go down to the local schools and I'll just pick up some eligible candidates. But as Travis just said a little while ago, there needs to be a conversation that's communicating what the expectations are, what my company represents, what is my culture all about. So therefore, one of the things you find is that when it comes to acquiring talent, these three elements, vision, mission, objectives, need to be considered. Vision is where the broker expects to be, where he's taking everyone. The vision should be a compelling statement that everyone can recognize right away and be part of it. A vision. And just the word itself gives it away. That everyone can see where we're going, that destination. A mission is a little bit more broader because it defines the culture in the way in which the brokerage will be behaving to reach those goals. It also defines the resources necessary in order to meet the needs of consumers. So Jack's business could be residential, it could be commercial, and some could be property management. But the thing is, it has to be defined. And by defining it, we now know what we need. What kinds of people we need in order to fulfill those roles, in order to get and to provide those services to others at an optimal quality standard. You find also objectives are necessary as well. Objectives. It's a little bit different from mission. It's building on mission, but there are measurable goals. An organization must have measurable goals. From one day to the next, or one project to the next. Who's doing it? What systems do we need? Measurable. In fact, one of the important things that you'll find when it comes to measurable goals and people, we need to really have something that can describe the role of people who will be fitting into that organizational block of objectives. Can anyone tell me, or maybe just, top of your head, what kind of document, what kind of form you think the brokerage needs to identify the role of each individual? Just think for a moment. Or in your previous employee, what is it that established accountability?
We used to.
Go ahead, Mark.
We used to use that DISC profile thing, that DISC personality.
Personality test.
We would know where to position the people based on their personalities for the type of job we wanted to do for us.
Okay, so personality assessment can help to place this individual in a particular role.
Yeah.
But I'm looking for a form that you will create that ties back to the vision, ties back to the mission, and the objectives as well. Go ahead, Ted.
Policy, procedures?
Policy and procedures, and we're getting there. This particular document is actually supporting the policy and procedure as well. I'm looking for one more.
Mission statement?
No.
No, okay, I'll give it away.
Vision statement.
Is the job description.
Oh, that's too obvious.
That's what I meant.
You think they're the same?
Yeah.
So the job description identifies the role. It identifies the experiences, the responsibilities. We can hold the person accountable as well. Right? Job description. But the job description also helps us how we're going to make this known to potential applicants. right? And without the job description, we cannot label or list the job properly. In fact, the job description supports the vacancy listing. Why would I say that?
So that when you're applying for a job, you know what you're applying for.
So when the job description, Beth, what would we say? It's probably, if it's in the newspapers or if it's on a social media or even on the broker website, what would be on that listing, that vacancy listing? Go ahead, Beth.
Me? Yeah. Enthusiastic, goal, self-starter, money hungry. I mean, let's face it. Be honest about it. Motivated, self-starting, hungry broker.
Who wants to make $1 million a year?
Exactly, that's it. Well, I mean, you gotta put this, and you have to put commission. I mean.
That's the rewards, right?
Right, you have to put, you can't say salary, you have to put commission and long hours, so they know what they're in for. Don't put a cotton candy ad in there, or, puffy ads. Be honest about it so that they know what they're getting into, so that you can weed out the ones who are just applying for the job. Get the people who really want to do the job.
I tell you what, Beth, you're so right. When it comes to advertising a job, we want to set out the rewards, but we want to set out the criteria as well. We want to make sure that people understand what this job is about. And sometimes people don't put a lot of credit on this, but also the job title as well. All of that information comes from the job description. Right? All of it comes from the job description. So, moving forward, the job description has a twofold responsibility. It ties back to the strategic planning, vision, mission, objectives, but it also ties back to the way in which we're going to advertise the job as well in our vacancy listing, whether we choose to use the newspapers, whether we choose to use social media. Another important aspect of acquiring talent, you'll find that eligible candidates, after we put the vacancy listing out there, we're going to have a pool of resumes coming in. And just looking at this lineup here, which person catches your attention?
Red pops out.
Red.
The lady in the red outfit.
How about the one with the phone?
With the phone.
The one with the, what did you say,
She's
Gary?
got a phone, kids forget paper, they got a phone, they got, it looks like a tablet or something.
Yeah.
I'm going to say all of them, because you cannot judge a book by the cover.
Absolutely, absolutely. So,
Good answer.
Seriously, you can't.
one of the things you find that brokers sometimes make a mistake on is that they judge the person on face value. They're waiting in the waiting room and, their minds is already made up. I'm going to buy that one. Oh, those can go home. Right? But you don't know until you have gathered enough information about the person and assess, are they right for your business?
That's where Jack messed up the first time. He just took them all.
He put an emphasis on they took the course, they passed the exam, and they are good enough. In fact, he's saying to himself, this is what I did. I took the course 10 years ago, I passed the exam, and I'm golden right now, and I expect others to be the same. But you and I know that in this business, we all come from different backgrounds.
But we all put our pants on the same way, one leg at a time.
Absolutely.
I should try that.
You should just try pants.
I starch my jeans, they stand up by themselves in the
Yeah,
corner. I just
exactly.
jump from bed into there and I'm good to go. Keeps me limber.
Question for you. You know, since we're in Arizona, we have, our job vacancy for brokers is, are you breathing? Sometimes. And so, are you suggesting that I can't just take all the breathing people with a license and hope that 5% of them are good enough? If I hire 100, I get 5, like just do it by volume?
In fact, I'd like to just add to that, Cara. I'd like you to just look at this really quickly. I only have a few more minutes, but I'd like you to look at this very clearly for a moment. We have 2 strategies, open door recruitment, and that's what Jack used. He used a filtering method. The advantage is that he's able to fill those seats in his office quickly, but he has a very high turnover. He has a very low retention, and it affects the culture. As opposed to recruitment selection, which will involve collecting the resume, a personality assessment, engaging in an interview, and making sure this person's right. You will have a better retention, and you will also have a better culture and more certainty with this individual. And also, I'd like to conclude on this, is that we've got to have a mentoring program, we've got to have a coaching program, but nothing represents ongoing training in the office, in the things that causes people to fail. Are there any more questions that you may have regarding this? Regarding talent management and how it relates to running a brokerage? How has this session opened your eyes? How has this session will allow you to think differently about running your business? Go ahead, Jan.
My aha is this slide. I've been filtering, and I went to qualifying by using the disc, and that's really helped. But I like when certain words just hit me, and my method is qualifying now, but I filtered, and it was like a revolving door is the one that's missing from my first practice that I opened, because I was like, oh, I just need bodies. And so this really helps, because those bodies don't make you any money. They cost you a lot of money if they don't get up and running. So thank you for this slide.
You're welcome, Jan. Very good. Go ahead, Nerd.
So your 2 methods there, as an example, does anybody remember Handy Dan?
Yeah.
Middle management decided to have do-it-yourselfer warehouse. Upper management said, no, that's stupid, we're not going to do it. Middle management is now known as Home Depot. Home Depot, when they hired you to work in the plumbing department, you had to have a plumbing license. So when you went in there, they knew what a 1-inch pipe was, a 2-inch pipe, a Schedule 40, the PVC, things like that. So when you went into Home Depot, you got help, didn't you?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's not true today. Now, it's anybody that will work there. You go to the plumbing department and you ask for something, and he stands and he starts looking at all the things that are there, and I'm like, look,
But you
dummy,
just looked at.
I can look at the aisle. If you can't help me, move on. So what does that tell you as a person who goes to buy something?
Yeah.
Is it worth having somebody that can help you, or worth having somebody that's just standing there helping you look?
Yeah, that's why I go to age.
That's your qualifying method. And she backed it up a bunch by saying, my changes helped me.
Well, that was like yesterday when we were listening to Jeff
Yeah.
for Disney,
Yes.
knowing that you have that person who works for Disney helping you, taking care of taking care of the employees who will be able to help you. You take care of your people, and then they know what they're doing. They're taking care of the customers.
And there's some truth to that, but there's some extension to that. There's a book written in the 90s called Turning the Thing Around. Obviously, I'm from Texas, and it's by Jimmy Johnson. But Dave Wanstead was his defensive coordinator, won Super Bowl 2 years in a row. Dave came to him and said, I have a new head coaching job that's been offered to me at Washington. What do I do? I'll go with you and help you get the job. What did he do to himself? He helped to better him, but he cut himself off at the knees, didn't he? Because now I got to find a defensive coordinator. That is true helping somebody advance at their level, not
Okay.
hold them to their job.
Thank you so much for that, Nerd.
You need to cut me off.
Beth, Nerd, you're fantastic, great responses, and I'll now turn this over to Mark. Thank you all.